Good afternoon, everyone. How can we reimagine work? We love to ask that question year after year, decade after decade. It feels like an elusive quest, but we keep asking it anyway. The motivation to reimagine something comes from a desire to feel differently about it, to change our relationship to it. As a sociologist who studies what people think and feel about work, I've long wondered, how are we imagining work? Before we reimagine it, we need to understand its current status in our minds. And these days, it feels mostly a morass of badness. I've been struck by the steady drumbeat of unflattering portrayals, especially in the media, since 2020. The offensive against work's reputation reached a fever pitch during the Great Resignation, the label that many observers use to describe the surge in turnover in 2020 and 2021. Even if you weren't personally caught up in the labor market mayhem, it was quite difficult to avoid the deluge of negativity, especially claims about the purported personal causes of the turnover during that period. The message was simple and repeated over and over. Workers felt a deep and intensifying dissatisfaction. The narrative celebrated that workers had finally reached a breaking point. They've had enough, and they revolted in anti-work and anti-ambition movements. Suddenly, hating your job became cool, and quitting became fun and quiet. The New York Times declared workers across social media are enjoying the vicarious thrill of chewing out a terrible boss. And here we are. The pandemic has ended. The Great Resignation is over. How are those anti-work and anti-ambition movements doing? Well, we're still working. But how do we feel about it now? In their book, Out of Office, Charlie Warzel and Anne Helen Peterson write the following, quote, "There's a rot at the center of the way we think about our jobs and the way that we're asked to perform them. Our relationship to work is broken. Our attitudes towards work are toxic." Perhaps Mark Twain was right. Work is a necessary evil to be avoided. Reflecting on what he called the rhetoric and vibes surrounding the Great Resignation, The Atlantic's Derek Thompson distilled the central claim, quote, "Most Americans hate their job, and the pandemic really made them hate their job," end quote. But the subtitle of that article really sparked my curiosity. He wrote, quote, "American workers are more satisfied than the internet would have you believe." And that actually really sparked my curiosity for the talk today and my research. I wondered, have people internalized the rhetoric and bad vibes? If so, then most people should believe that others' discontent is widespread. To test my hunch, I fielded a series of national surveys of thousands of American and Canadian workers. To establish credible measures and make comparisons to the past, I've excavated items from the classic quality of employment surveys from the 1970s, the quality of work-life module in the General Social Survey, and my all-time favorite, the National Study of the Changing Workforce. Thank you. It's been a personal inspiration to me. In addition to those, I developed my own approach to try to expose these bad vibes about work. I developed these measures that I call perception glitches. A glitch is a small problem that prevents something from working as well as it should. The primary form I focus on here involves the gap between what people think and feel about their own job as they report on surveys and what they think most other people think and feel about their job. When it comes to this kind of perception glitch, job satisfaction is at the center of gravity. Glitch number one, We've been thinking and feeling and talking about job satisfaction in the same way for about 50 years. But there's a new problem, a growing negativity. Ironically, however, it's not necessarily negativity that people evaluate in their own working lives. What do I mean? Since the 1970s, researchers have used this basic global question about job satisfaction. All in all, how satisfied would you say you are with your job? Would you say very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, not too satisfied, or not at all satisfied? It's the standard one that's existed for decades. If most workers loathe their jobs, we would expect, if you scooped up a national sample and asked that question, that very few workers will report somewhat or very satisfied. But that's not the case, and it's not even close. 79% or so consistently report being somewhat or very satisfied. That's the personal bar here on your left, okay? So the claim that most people dislike their own job is false. But do most people believe that most other people dislike theirs? To find out, I asked a follow-up question with the same response choices, and I randomized the order of the two, personal versus other. How satisfied would you say that most other American workers are with their job? While only 21% of workers personally feel dissatisfied, 51% believe that most other workers are dissatisfied with their job. As a side note, I replicated all of the glitches that I'm going to report today in Canada, so every figure that you see, Canada looks almost identical to the US, which is on its own fascinating, because people think America's unique. Not on these glitches, it's almost identical. Down almost to the decimal point sometimes, kind of scary. Satisfaction is only the starting point. We've been told that too many people feel overworked and underpaid and insecure, stuck in meaningless jobs. We've been warned against making work the centerpiece of our identity. Some even encourage making work a purely transactional economic relationship. A job is just a job. Don't expect work to help you find a self-understanding. Work won't love you back. It's a basket of bad vibes that many people now carry. Let's unpack that basket. Glitch number 2, of all the factors that undercut satisfaction, job stress is one of the biggest. If stress is as rampant as the bad vibes suggest, we expect most workers will personally find their work stressful often or always. But that's not the case. 32% of Americans report high work stress. Yes, that's a problem that we should address. But here's the glitch. 70% think that most other workers feel excessive work stress. We also found this glitch extends to the local context of one's coworkers. The takeaway here, most people aren't personally excessively stressed at work at the top line level, but they believe most other workers, even their coworkers, are. Glitch number 3. A constant in the anti-work drumbeat implicated severe underpayment as one of the personal causes of the Great Resignation. Yes, people do feel underpaid, but it isn't quite as severe as the narrative suggests. 23% of Americans say they feel severely underpaid a lot. That's a problem we should address, but here's the glitch. 55% believe that most others feel severely underpaid. Yes, 4 in 10 workers feel underpaid a little, actually in the United States and Canada. That's not new, however. The story here is about how widespread perceptions of severe underpayment are in the population. Glitch number 4, job insecurity sits alongside feeling overworked and underpaid in the narrative about what's wrong with work. How bad is it? 70% of American workers agree with this statement, my job is secure. But here's the glitch, only 34% think that most other workers enjoy the same level of job security. Glitch number 5, another dominant narrative involves the idea that most of the things people do on their job are meaningless, but the data tell another story. 21% say most of the things they do on their job are meaningless. Yeah, that's too high and not good, but 55% believe most others have mostly meaningless jobs. That's bad. Glitch number 6, another bad vibe is that too many people make work the centerpiece of their identity, and that's a problem because it facilitates exploitation. So the narrative encourages people to push work away from the center of who they are. But the data challenge the underlying assumption. Only 30% of Americans say work is the main source of satisfaction in life. But here's a twist on the glitch. This one's an outlier. Most people believe others share the same view on this. This one's unique. This is a favorite narrative in the anti-work zeitgeist. Most people have bad relations with management. It supposedly drove the take this job and shove it spirit behind the Great Resignation. But is it accurate? Not really. 57% of workers describe relations between management and employees as quite good or very good. Yes, on this one, there's actually more room for improvement, and there's a lot more ambiguity in this one. But only 22% of workers think other workers have positive relations. Glitch number 8, most people are quiet quitting. According to TikTok, quiet quitting is when you, quote, quit the idea of going above and beyond. Gallup claimed that 50% of Americans and 75% of Canadians are quiet quitting. My friend Paul Glavin texted me on the train while I was over and said, UK, they just reported 90% are quiet quitting. Let's just go to 100 and call it a day. Everybody's quiet quitting. I found that 52% of Americans say they personally put a lot of effort into their job beyond what is required. But here's the glitch. Only 13% believe that most other American workers do the same. Derek Thompson called out the fake trends about work that really escalated during the Great Resignation and made an appeal that has inspired my big idea. Quote, if quiet quitting is fake, the popularity of anti-work neologisms is its own data point that deserves to be taken seriously as a cultural phenomenon. Glitch number 9, turnover intention is a core precursor to quitting, and the narrative claims that most people are eager to ditch their current job. But again, it just isn't true. 62% say they're not at all likely to look for a new job in the next year. But here's the glitch. A whopping 81% think most others are somewhat or very likely to make a change. Glitch number 10. Last but not least, do most people believe a job is just a way of earning money, nothing more? Not yet, but the trends on this one are ominous and concerning because the narrative is pushing a purely transactional relationship to work. 42% of Americans now see a job as just a way of earning money. That's at an all-time high since this question's been tracked. But here's the glitch. 68% believe that most others hold this purely transactional view. Maybe moving towards transactional view is rational when money is on people's minds. Think cost of living crisis. But I found a glitch here too. 60% say they rarely or never have difficulties affording basic necessities, but poor Joe Biden on this one. 80% think that most others are struggling. I'm okay, but everybody else is worse off. What is going on? These perception glitches could reflect what Derek Thompson calls the everything is terrible, but I'm fine mindset. Or a cognitive bias in which we pay attention to negative information, everybody's complaining all the time about work, revealing our tendency toward individual optimism but social pessimism. My research has started to try to measure the consequences of all of this negativity. So far, Paul Glavin and I have found that when satisfied workers perceive widespread dissatisfaction among the general public or their coworkers, it actually takes a toll on their own commitment to their own job and their employer. What can we do? This is my project. My project is to try to move the dials on these perception glitches. Yes, making work better is the goal. But after years of bad vibes coming out of the pandemic and out of the Great Resignation, a more accurate read on what most people think and feel about work will set an optimistic foundation for change. I understand the appeal of making declarations like, our relationship to work is broken. That negativity gets clicks, and it feeds our negativity instinct. But too much darkness does a disservice to our understanding of what work is for and fuels the claim that work needs a substantial major overhaul, or worse, that we should just ditch it altogether. My data right now in the field suggests the pendulum is starting to move back, thank goodness, in a positive way. Now is the time to move into a more optimistic, subjective space. We don't need to form a new conception of work to get there, and we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Instead, we can move the needles on the essential elements of work that are mostly already in place. It's not perfect, but a lot of them, when you talk to people, a lot of them are already in place. We just need to help them get a little bit more. But to see those elements, we need to clear this morass of badness. If we do, we'll help people get a little more, and a little more can make a big difference. Thank you.